Hey folks, and welcome back to another episode of your Brains Coach podcast. My name is Angela Shurina. I'm your host, I'm your Brains Coach, and it is my job here to bring to you all the brain body tools you can use to feel, look, and do your absolute best. And folks, yesterday I was talking to a few people inquiring about my coaching and my work, and we humans, we tend to think that if we are smart in one area, we probably are smart in all of the other areas. But the thing that we often don't realize is that when we get expertise, when we spend a lot of time researching something, we're not spending that time researching something else. But all of the areas of possible expertise, these days, they are growing with exponential speed. So if you're not an expert in the area, there is no chance you're going to be as versed in any subject as somebody else who is spending all of their time trying to be an expert in that area. Now, nobody really is an expert in one area because you know some things, you don't know other things. But if you spend, let's say, 6 hours a day becoming an expert in one area and somebody else spends the same amount of time becoming the expert in another area, the amount of knowledge you both gonna have in those different areas is completely different. A lot of smart people, we have this tendency to think that we know everything, or at least we understand and we are aware of all of that knowledge that is out there. But for example, yesterday I was talking to an entrepreneur and potentially client, and I asked him, do you use any breathwork exercises to manage your stress, to manage your state? And he said, well, I tried once holotropic breathing and some other types of breathing. But he didn't have the very specific knowledge, like what is the most effective breathing exercise to switch your nervous system from sympathetic to parasympathetic mode, or in simpler words, from fight or flight to rest and digest, to manage your stress on a daily level. You know, all founders, all entrepreneurs get a lot of overwhelm, a lot of stress and pressure situations. And it's not that the way is not to avoid them, but to learn how to manage them. And so some breathing exercises, specifically, as you learned on this podcast, physiological side, is considered to be the most effective way to manage your stress on a physiological level, bringing your system again from fight or flight to rest and digest. And it is very important, you know, for example, to be in that state when you're about to make an important decision that can affect your business for the next several months or years. Anyhow, the point is, folks, if you are in a position that you can hire an expert to help you master some area of your life, and you are an expert in some other area, there is no chance you're going to get the same result by yourself as with another expert person. It's kind of like, I don't know, hiring a plumber when something goes wrong with your plumbing. I'm not that technical in this department. You, in theory, can learn those skills, but how long it's going to take? And how much time you're going to spend trying it all out and messing it all up and making mistakes, and still might not find the best solution for your specific problem. But again, the problem with smart people that I find challenging, but also kind of fun, is to make them realize that they are smart, but they're not smart in everything. It is virtually impossible unless you have some supercomputer brain. That some people do, but there is like maybe 2 in the whole population of Earth, right? And you're probably not that person. So if you're an expert in your area, please do not think that you are an equal expert in all the other areas. If you eat your food, it doesn't mean you're an expert in nutrition. Just like if I use my computer, I'm not an expert in software engineering, right? So just think about it, and think about it because working with an expert will save you a lot of energy, will save you a lot of time that you can spend enjoying your life, or, I don't know, moving your vision forward and making more money if that's something that drives you. Right, so that's an expertise. But now back to the practical aspect of our podcast today. Today is all about hacks, simplifications, and the most effective ways to get started or get certain result achieved. A couple of things here. So I've already started talking about breath work. And so today I had another meeting with a guy who's like genius, Richard Branson type of person. And he has this pattern, like a lot of actual entrepreneurs do, that he goes on and on and on and on, figuring stuff out, building things really fast, but then he doesn't manage the downside. And he almost always in that stress, tense, ready to go, ready for action state until he burns out. And then he has to take like a month off to just recover. And so because of this, flight to flight response almost 24/7, his digestive system suffers, and his body is starting to give signs, like different, things related to immune system that, it's not sustainable. Like you run at this high speed for periods of time that are not sufficient enough with in the mix with the rest patterns. So the system basically starts to crash. Like again, what fight or flight response or state in the body is really bad for long-term maintenance of life essential systems, like your immune system starts to take a hit when we are going through the periods or, long periods of time of fight or flight states, and we just always on and on and on and on. Immune system is downregulated, and what it means, it doesn't work that well, and it doesn't always mean that you're going to get sick more often. What it also means is that it's going to become overreactive. You might develop food allergies, food sensitivities. You might get skin rashes or eczema, or you might get a lot of stuff on your skin because that's, where one of the areas where your body experiences or encounters outer world, and the immune system watches and regulates what happens, for example, on your skin or what gets in contact, or also your digestive system is another place where your immune system monitors very strictly what happens there. And if there is a potential threat, then you're going to get an immune response. And again, that can manifest. Somebody can have problems with breathing, like asthma. Somebody can have skin problems. So those are the most common issues. Then also fight or flight response turned on 24/7 makes your digestion very poor, because your blood flow, when it comes to fight or flight response, goes to your limbs, out of your brain, goes to your limbs, to your muscles, goes to your heart. So your breathing is ramped up, your heart rate, and again, all of the systems that are meant to kind of defend, ready to go, act, fight off whatever's coming, they are ramped up. Whereas long-term life maintenance, including your things like libido, hormonal health, they are downregulated, as well as repairing certain mistakes in your DNA and repairing cellular machinery. So all of these things that are more long-term get a hit. And that's why running for, 2-3 months, and only then giving your system a rest, that's going to eventually run you to the ground, basically. And you're going to start experiencing a lot more health problems and pains. And then for some people, it also manifests really rapidly to feeling of cynicism, like everything is meaningless, and, almost hating the world and yourself, and being very, again, just not having, a lot of positive emotions, basically. So that's the premise of why regulating your nervous system and having periods of fight or flight, and then equally important, rest and digest throughout your day, why this is important. And breath work, when done right, when it is the right kind, when it's done consistently, it can help you do that easily. So if you're someone who running high and fast most of the time, then it is very important for you to perhaps every hour take a couple of breaths to switch your nervous system into that rest and digest. That also, by the way, opens up your creative thinking and makes you consider more options. That is also for a lot of creative people, a lot of productive people, a lot of entrepreneurs and founders is very important. Our creativity, like creating solutions that nobody thought of. When you're in your fight or flight, you're very focused, but that focus is also very narrow. And that's, again, based on neuroscience research. So it's not, just me saying that. The brain, like the way the brain works changes based on your state, whether fight or flight or rest and digest. And so the most effective breath work based on current literature is physiological sigh, and that is double inhale and long exhale. So it sounds like this. And you do that at least 3 times every hour, and you'd be surprised how much difference it's going to make by learning how to go through these cycles when you're ready to fight, flight, and act, but then also you find a lot of those moments when you switch off your fight or flight and get into rest and digest. Again, physiological sigh is, according to current literature, is the most effective. It's the most effective way to switch your nervous system from one state to the other. And again, if you are an overachiever, someone who always on the go, achieving and running, etc., and you rarely consider rest and recovery, that is one of the hacks that will allow you to still balance out your nervous system activity and help you to last longer instead of, again, burning out more often and longer than not. So that's, breathwork number 1 and why it's important. A funny story, not going to a story, but what I just read this morning. I was reading an article and it was about breathwork and Alzheimer's. And in the article, they put together the research, and they described the research. And according to this research, this kind of breath work will help to prevent accumulation of a lot of those plaques that from current literature seem to be correlated with instances of Alzheimer's disease. Like, they still don't know what exactly causes Alzheimer's disease, right? But it seems that the more the plaques the person has, the more likely they to have Alzheimer's, either now or later in life. So anyhow, so they did this research, with a lot of participants. I think it was 108. And what they learned is when people do this, and I'm going to describe to you in a second, breathwork practice regularly, they took 4 weeks as a period that they were tested. When people do that regularly, they accumulate less of those plaques compared to, what they did before not doing this practice. But the practice was 2 times a day, 20 minutes of breath work, and breathing pattern was breathe in for 5 counts, breathe out for 5 counts, and do that for 20 minutes 2 times per day. Now, that study might be an amazing study and breakthrough. But folks, what I learned in my practice, if you tell a person to do something for the rest of their life, something that nothing else but breath work, 20 minutes, 2 times a day, who, unless they're yogis or people really dedicated to mindfulness practices, who on earth would do that? Even I'm not going to do that. And that made me think that a lot of advice out there, it's good in theory and might be very breakthrough, but if it's not applicable to an average person and nobody is going to do that, it doesn't matter, what's the best diet if nobody's going to stick to that. And that's what I also use in my practice. If I will learn something about the person and I tell them to do something and I see on their face that there is not a chance they're going to do it right now, then I'm not going to propose it. No matter how effective that is, I'm going to figure out a different way to approach the same problem to get the result. It might not be the most effective, but it will work because they're going to do it. Because again, it doesn't matter how effective anything is. If the person not going to stick with that, at least at the moment, then it doesn't matter. And that also goes to the point that came up in a few conversations lately with entrepreneurs who, again, were inquiring about my coaching. People would ask me, okay, there is this question of using the most effective method, and I'm only interested in doing that. And I always remind them, there might be the most effective way to eat, but if in your life you're not able to sustain it, it doesn't freaking matter. There might be the best intermittent fasting, macro and micro split out there for you specifically, but if you're not going to do it and it's going to create a whole lot of mess in your life, then why does it matter? And always, folks, no matter what you decide to do with your health practices, with your self-optimization, always remember this fact. You know you. Are you going to do it consistently to make a difference? If you do this breathing practice, 20 minutes, 2 times a day, for a couple of days, and you know you're not going to maintain it, what's the point of trying? Because these things only work, kind of like shower. If you take it daily, it works. If you take it once a year, it doesn't. The same goes for those practices, right? So whenever you choose any protocol to try, you ask yourself, am I being real here? Am I going to do it right now? If not, then maybe put it somewhere, set a reminder to consider it at a later point, or just forget about it. Because again, for most things in life, it only matters if you go back to reality of your life. And if you realize, is it realistic? Is it doable? Am I really going to do it? If not, don't bother, forget about it. Don't feel guilty. Just realize this is your life and this thing is not fitting into it. So that's about the breath work. About this specific breath work that is kind of cool, but kind of also doesn't matter because most people not going to do it. Then I want to introduce to you another breathing practice that is great to improve your heart rate variability, a very important factor in cardiovascular health. And with age, it seems to be degrading. So you want to prevent it from happening, to have your heart healthy, your lungs healthy, so you move around, so you're free, you're never limited by what you can do in life, what you want and what you can do in life, right? So heart rate variability is very important. Also, the breathing that I'm about to describe to you helps you to develop a better breathing pattern when you do nothing. Like literally, when you practice that 5 minutes a day consistently, the rest of the day, you're going to start breathing differently. And differently in a way that your breathing is deeper, that you release and you hold on more carbon dioxide. And that is very important. Believe it or not, folks, how your body, how you use carbon dioxide matters more for how you oxygenate your blood and the brain than how deep or how much oxygen you inhale. It's equally important to be able to hold that carbon dioxide as it is to get a lot of oxygen into your system. That carbon dioxide has a lot to do with how much oxygen you're able to get into your system. And oxygen, or good oxygenation of your blood, really matters when it comes to brain performance, when it comes to focus. A lot of people have troubles focusing or managing their focus, being focused on one thing, and then when it makes sense, switching it to something else instead of jumping from one place to another and never, being in control of that. So the way you oxygenate your blood and breathing has a lot to do with that. And, this breath work going to improve that, has a lot to do with your ability to focus. You might not need all these nootropics and smart drugs. There might not be anything wrong with your brain. What might be wrong is your breathing pattern. And that affects your heart rate also. That affects how your nervous system works. That's why breath work helps with accumulation of those plaques during Alzheimer, because breathing changes your nervous system, how it works, and that ultimately changes everything. So breathwork, back to breathwork. What is this 5-minute a day protocol that's going to change how you breathe throughout your day? By the way, folks, if you didn't learn about that yet, but breathing through your mouth when you aren't talking or eating or heavily exercising, breathing through your mouth is not a normal breathing pattern, and it can cause a lot of health problems. It can cause a lot of cognitive problems. It can cause a lot of sleep problems. So you need to become a nose breather. That's what your nose, besides sniffing and smelling, is meant for: breathing. And it has a lot to do with also microbiome in your nose and how you prevent certain things coming into your lungs and your breathing system. So how you breathe through either nose or mouth has a lot to do with it, and also how you again oxygenate your blood and how well because of that you can focus. So the breath work, 5 minutes of box breathing, and box breathing is basically equal amount of time for breathing in, hold, breathe out, hold. They usually say 4 counts breathe in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts breathe out, 4 counts hold. Kind of like drawing with your breathing this box. 4, 4, 4, you might use 5, 5, 5. The more counts you can do that breath work for 5 minutes without getting out of breath or anything, just, kind of getting used to that, getting comfortable with it. So the more you can do that, the better your heart rate variability gets, the better your breathing pattern gets, the better your oxygenation of your blood gets. And because of the changes to your nervous system, the better you get at focus. And a lot more things happen with good breathing pattern. So this breath work will help you. You can use your nose as much as possible. And just realize if you're a mouth breather, your breathing pattern might be causing a lot of problems with your nervous system and your overall health. Believe it or not, folks, there are, by the way, a lot of books on this and a lot of good research and studies. So mouth breathing, nose breathing, if you're curious, just Google it, and maybe books or whatever you might be curious about, YouTube videos, etc. And then the last, but definitely not least, my favorite topic ever, nutrition, what we are built of, food on our plate. A lot of folks ask me, okay, I understand the importance of nutrition, but it seems very complicated. Where do you start as my basic? Like, where would you recommend to start so I have some sort of measurable metric that I can, easily introduce into my routine? And as long as I keep it, as long as I hit it every day, this target, this goal, this, nutrition target, then I'll be kind of okay. So where, would you recommend to start? And I borrowed this piece of advice from the book that just came out, Built to Move by Dr. Kelly Starrett and his wife also. And they also are founders of the Ready State. It's a whole movement, exercise program. They work with Olympians, with all kinds of different champions, and just people who also want to move effectively into their old age and not be with a lot of pains and being not able to do what they want to do in life, right? It's about mobility, not flexibility, not strength, not power, about being mobile and having a great range of movement everywhere and preventing any possible issues with your mobility and your physical capabilities later in life. So they just wrote a book. It's been released, I don't know, maybe 3-4 weeks ago, Built to Move. And so in the book, they have a chapter on nutrition. And why would they put it there? Well, in the book, they describe it as not only are we built from the foods on our plate, but also the quality of your tissues, basically your muscles, your tendons, your ligaments, connective tissue, your organs, your skin, everything is made of that. And so in the book, he brought up this example of working with somebody who just underwent surgery, and he came back the next day, and I believe it was knee surgery, and the wound was just inflamed and red, and he immediately asked what did you have for breakfast? What did make your knee so angry? And the reason why he asked that, because certain foods or substances inflame your tissue. Certain foods inflame, but other foods may not give your tissue every building block it needs to recover. Now, you might undergo surgery, but common advice actually from people who know to then increase your protein consumption, because your body needs this building material to start rebuilding the actual tissue, kind of like building a house. Once it's destroyed by some hurricane, you need building materials, additional building materials to not just maintain it, but build it up again. And so when it comes to mobility and flexibility, I definitely notice it in my example, when my diet wasn't that perfect all the time, that on the days when my diet wasn't that great and I had some, pizza or some weird stuff, the next morning I would wake up and I would feel like my body is just not as mobile, not as flexible. It's like something is stopping it, from moving freely. And in this book, they say, yeah, that's exactly right. What the tissue is made of, it really matters. And because our cells replicate themselves and build new stuff every single day, even one meal, one day really does matter. All that to say, I love their advice. And that advice, no matter how simple it sounds, it's actually based on really good science. So their advice to start with nutrition is to keep your protein target on point. And that means, especially if you are more on an active side, meaning you exercise quite regularly, etc., you're just an active person, 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And that's about 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So if I'm 52 kilos, then for me, it means 104 grams of protein. I don't know, if you are 120 pounds, then it means 120 grams of protein. And then they say, the animal protein, it is a better quality because it has all the essential amino acids. It has like all the amino acids that our body cannot make. It has it the right amount because animals are especially mammals, are kind of made of the same stuff that we are. Plant-based doesn't have all the amino acids, not in the ideal amounts, and it is harder for our digestive system to get it out of the of plants, and that's why they personally include a lot of animal protein. But then they say, you can whatever you choose, just make sure that you get those grams in, whether that's, additional protein shake or whatever that might be, just get it in. And that is very important for your tissues, especially as you get older. You need more of that, not less of that, because your body also, your digestive system gets not that efficient with extracting and breaking down and using that protein. So for a lot of those different reasons, you need more protein, and you need it for absolutely everything your body and your mind does. So the first target that I recommend, again, get your protein on target. And then the second practice is get your 800 grams of fruit and vegetables a day. In pounds, how much in pounds is that? Let me see, like a couple of pounds of fruit and vegetables every single day. And that means like not juice, but, actual stuff that you chew, or, maybe a smoothie here and there might work, but most of it is whole foods, fresh or cooked, depending on, whether it's fruit or vegetable and how you're supposed to eat it. They recommend not to fry stuff. And I totally agree, because when you fry, you create certain compounds that are not great for your tissues and your health and your brain. So anyhow, but they give you those 2 pieces of advice: 800 grams of fruit and vegetables every day, and your ideal amount of protein. And that's exactly where I would start. Now, if you don't know anything about nutrition, start there. Get your protein, because it is essential for absolutely everything that happens in your body, especially if you do get older, or you might be an athlete and you need to recover more. And then also get those 900 grams of fruit and vegetables. They recommend 800 grams every single day. Not grains, actually beans they consider a vegetable for whichever reason, but 800 grams of fruit and vegetables every single day. And that will cover your fiber, that will cover your major vitamins and minerals targets. Now, of course, there is a lot more to nutrition, especially for the brain, like essential fatty acids, etc. But if I were to start anywhere, I would start exactly there and never drop it in my entire life. And then on top of that, I would build up specific. So no matter what, distribute that amount of protein and fruit and vegetables between your meals. And that seems to be the most effective practice, to distribute it. And also they recommend to not snack, have like 3 meals a day. That's it. And that's it. And that's exactly where I would start, folks. So if you are newbie to nutrition, and then again, goes back to me talking to a lot of entrepreneurs now, and a lot of them are into self-optimization, but also this perfectionist mindset that like, oh, I gotta do it everything and perfectly and perfect macros and etc. You kind of have to measure your protein amount, but once you figure out the amount of food you have, then you don't have to measure anything. You kind of, okay, I eat that amount of protein-rich foods, during my day. And the same with fruit and vegetables. I don't weigh my fruit and vegetables. I just kind of know if I eat like 2 bananas, it's 200 grams of fruit and vegetables per day already. If I eat 300 grams of blueberries per day, that's, another 300 grams. I'm already at 500, but I eat a lot more fruit and vegetables. That's just my breakfast. So, and then I don't measure anything. And then on top of that, you can build up other stuff, whatever you want. But that's kind of the foundation of your meals. For me, it's 110 grams of protein. That's what I usually shoot for. And 800 grams of fruit and vegetables per day. That's what I shoot for. And the rest I build up on top of that, as I go, as I know my nutrition needs and what I eat, etc. So that's the basics. The basics first, always first, folks, not the intricacies of the most complex nutrition plan that you're never going to do. Back to reality, folks. Ask yourself what you're going to do. But if you were to work on your nutrition, that's exactly where you start. Again, based on research, based on data, based on expertise. And if nutrition and other health related sciences are not your expertise, then please do not think that you are a nutrition expert because you read a few articles and because you eat food. That is not how it works. Not in computer science, not in anything related to health science that is more complex. And that's about it, folks. I hope you found a lot of useful advice. To sum it up, the most effective breath work and super fast to switch your nervous system from fight or flight to rest and digest. And we talked about why it is so vitally, crucially important to have this switch active and use it quite often throughout the day, especially if you're wired to run, to get things done, and you just, running on all speeds, like, those cylinders, what's the expression? English is not my first language. Running your cylinders on all speeds, something like that. But anyhow, if you're that kind of person, you understand what I mean. So you need to learn breath work. And the second kind of breathing that will improve your heart rate variability also will help you to activate this switch between rest, digest, and fight or flight. It will also help you to develop better breathing pattern throughout the day and improve oxygenation of your blood, and by doing so, improve the work of your nervous system and your focus. So 5 minutes of box breathing, breathe in, hold, breathe in, breathe out, hold, equal time. So combining that, with that other physiological side that you can use throughout the day, like 3 breath cycles whenever you need it. That's all breath work really that I would recommend for most of you folks, especially if you are busy, unless you're really into breath work, then you can, do whatever you want. And I can actually advise you on further practices, but that's where I would stop for most of you for now, at least. And then the nutrition journey, 800 grams of fruit and vegetables per day. And then the amount of protein, that is 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, or 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. And back to basics, back to most effective stuff. And don't forget, again, expertise matters. And just because you're smart in one area does not make you any smarter in all the other areas that are, a lot of them out there. Plus, the rate of knowledge accumulation in each area, it just tremendously has increased because of AI, because of, our information systems got faster, got better, and so many other factors. We human beings do accumulate more and more knowledge as we go. And so if you are not an expert in some area, it's going to be harder and harder for you to understand an expert in this area. Plus, experts like myself, we're also not stupid people. We use AI and other tools to educate ourselves even better on that specific subject. So remember that an expert can save you a ton and ton and ton of time that you can use to enjoy your life or make more money to enjoy your life even more. And that being said, that's it for today, folks. Happy Thursday. You're going to hear from me one more time this week. I'll see what's the most exciting out there to help you do your best, feel, look, do your best, and learn all the brain body tools that can exponentially improve the quality of your alive. Talk to you soon. Have an awesome Thursday and take care of your brain.